Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Hummel Insurance Group for sponsoring today's show. Hummel Insurance Group now owns and operates 7 different offices located throughout the tri-state area. For over 50 years now, the Hummel Insurance Group has been assisting customers with insurance needs and questions. For all your insurance needs, contact Hummel Insurance Group at 812-537-1785. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. This is Merle Hutchinson alongside of my lovely wife, Linda Hutchinson. Linda, how are you doing today?
I'm tired a little bit.
The old sleep number shot you 68 last night, didn't it?
You know my number before I do.
Well, because I looked at mine, and yours is right next to it. So.
Well, I got kind of a late start to sleep last night.
I keep scoring in the mid-80s. I don't know what's going on there. That's awesome.
I've actually, if I'm going to be honest, I've had a kind of an emotional day today.
You have. You came in had tears in your eyes. What's happening?
I'll share later, but it was good tears. But, I mean, it was just really powerful today. God's really moving, and it's just kind of catching me off guard.
Not me, guys. It's just been a regular day. I'm just a cold fish.
Oh, no.
No. Hey, So how are you? You doing okay? You gonna be all right? Am I going to have to fly solo today?
No,
you're going to do okay?
You told me to take a deep breath. I got a deep breath. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Got a story for you.
A story?
Do you remember back in the house on Cove Circle when I opened up the pantry, I don't know, to get a box of cereal or something, and there sat a mouse staring at me right on the shelf?
I do remember that because we lived kind of in the woods and right next to the woods. And so every time that we kind of get cold or something, you'd find yourself with a little mouse in the house.
There'd be a mouse in the house.
This was a little devil.
So I opened up the pantry door, and all of a sudden I saw this little mouse looking at me.
And I'm screaming.
And out of my instinct, I had a grilling spatula hanging kind of on the wall there.
You're not going to get into detail about this, are you?
Oh, not too much. And so I grabbed the spatula and went to battle. Let me just say that I don't think either of us really won.
Dismemberment? Is that a word?
Yeah, but the mouse lived. The mouse lived. But anyway, I never did catch him. But but he wasn't quite the same when I got done with him.
We kind of tease all the time. It's like a 3-legged mouse, you know. So,
now,
if you start to hear this,
please, nobody out there get into any animal cruelty. It was, it was a mouse in the house. All right. So anyway, it was a reactive sort of thing, and anyway.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a funny
I'm hoping
story.
that it escaped and somehow grew another limb. I'm not sure.
Grew a whole like a starfish.
Yeah. It was just. I can't believe you're bringing that story up. That's gross.
Well,
because I will say that I did wash the spatula after.
Actually, we still have that spatula.
Yes, we do.
We still have it, and I occasionally still use it.
Oh, man.
So you should ask Linda if you knew what you're doing. You would say, why did you even go there?
Yeah.
All right.
Please.
Well, if you have paid attention at all to the news in the last week and a half or so, we've been talking about a different mouse. All right, and so. The mouse that we're talking about is the Disney mouse, Mickey Mouse.
Now, you're going to step on some toes here because there's a lot of Disney fans out there, a lot of Mickey Mouse fans.
I don't think I'm going to step on toes when you actually hear our show today and we walk through it, because I think part of what we're really going to get after today is, well, what does any of this mean to us as parents, okay? And so we're going to have some just regular conversation, dinner table kind of conversation about what we've talked about in our own family around our dinner table, because, we're a family just like all you guys out there listening. And, this is a conversation that we should be having. And I don't, you're in your house, you're going to have whatever you have and what your take is on it. But I kind of want to walk through a little bit about just how we walk through that with our kids and what it means to us. Okay, so but before we get into all of that, let's do a couple of our sponsor thank yous and a few announcements if we have any there. And let's rock and roll.
Yeah, so we want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Hummel Insurance Group for their support of Rock Solid Radio. These are just local community partners that believe in this messaging and have walked alongside this ministry. And so we just want to thank them. And we hope that you have the opportunity to thank them as well.
All right. Yes. So thank you. And also, we want to continue to keep driving our program out at Batesville Intermediate School in Batesville, Indiana, called Families Rock. This next week, actually tonight, as we air this show, Linda, you're going to be presenting on something that's kind of related to what we're doing here today.
Yeah.
It's going to be parenting in a tech-heavy world. The idea that technology it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's heavy in the sense of the weight that it often puts on all of us, but especially our kids. And so honey, that's one of those that you've dug into deeply over the years, and you speak with a lot of passion on that topic. So, we welcome you guys to come out. It's at Batesville Intermediate School, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Child care is providing that your child is potty trained. And go out. We had a good crowd last week, and so let's get even a better crowd this week. I think they can get some prizes too, right?
Yes, actually, we gave away some amazing prizes last week. And, this topic of technology isn't going away, and we're not going to be able to just throw our phones away and screens away. It's our way of life now. And so how do we manage that as parents? How do we help our kids manage it, teach them self-discipline? So not only are we talking about it, but there's also another workshop at the end of the month that we are involved with at Church on Fire Ministries in Harrison, Ohio, called the Purpose Workshop. And you can actually check that out as well online. Just Google Purpose Workshop or Church on Fire and see that. And we're going to be talking about the digital culture today as well. And so there's two opportunities there. And Hun, this is hitting so close to home. We've been really having some great parenting moments lately.
It's in our house too, guys.
The mouse is in our house.
The mouse is in the house.
Yeah, and so it's alive and well. I mean, it's trying to rear its ugly head, and it's trying to control our family and the dynamics of what we believe and how we parent. And so please do not just bury your head in the sand. As we're going to talk about tonight, you've got to make yourself educated. You've got to take a stand on what your family's going to stand for and what you're going to fight for in your parenting and in your home. And so that's what we're doing today. We're helping equip you so that you can make decisions for your family.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so let's set it up a little bit just in case anybody that was on Mars and wasn't on planet Earth to hear the news over the last week and a half. But about a week and a half or so ago, I will say probably more conservative right-wing news media outlets started to they found a leaked video of Disney executives speaking about kind of behind the scenes the push that they have to actually realize that a lot of their employees are members and active in the LGBTQ community, and that's such a big part of the Disney community that they have felt like maybe they have not done a good job of representing that community. And so the executives, that has been brought up through the corporate hierarchy. And so the executives have been saying, hey, we want to make this more part of what we do. We want to show that we care about these people and we want to include them. And so these were recorded messages by several different executives. And it really came out that they are going... It's not like it hasn't been in some of their programming, but now they're making a very, very intentional move to include programming, LGBTQ programming in their kids' programs as well as anything else that they put out. And, they didn't make any bones about it. They were like, oh, no, it's not a secret. Like in our meetings, this is what we talk about. And so you can look some of that stuff up. I'm not going to go through any of that. It's pretty easy to find. So you can go do that. And, Disney, just to give examples, they even talk about, if you even go to Disney World, like, and it's time for the parade and the fireworks and all that. They used to talk about boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, all come around and get ready for the parade and all this stuff. And they had this little ceremonious talk. And they said, now we are going to consciously remove all of the talk about boy or
gender,
girl, lady or gentleman. We're no longer going to speak to gender. And so, rightfully, to us who are parents and as a Christian parent thinking, what? You're going to do what? Like that? Why would you do that? Right? Like, what about all of us who do believe in boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen? And so it really got a lot of people just in an uproar and brought a lot of conversation. And from both sides of this. And so I think rather than beat up on Disney, we're going to, as we always do, well, what are we going to do in our home?
Right. And what does God's word say? Like,
right.
That's the key.
And that we're going to get to that. Like, okay, so how do I know what to do in my home? Okay. And so the very first thing I think we really want to talk about is by no means is this going to be a bashing of anyone. That's not what any of this is about. Okay. So we're going to be very clear here. We don't talk about treating anybody in any kind of place of life in a bad or a way that's demeaning, okay? And so whether they're an alcoholic, whether they're a drug user, whether they have a foul mouth, whether they have body, gender, identity issues, no, we are called to love everyone. But let's be very clear about what a sin is, okay? And the idea here is you've heard the phrase before, we're called to love the sinner and hate the sin.
Yeah. Hun, I just heard a story today about a father who was walking in Florida with their child, and they came up upon a coral snake. And that child was scared, and the father was upset, and he was thinking, like, I need to do something to get rid of the coral snakes in Florida. And he was literally thinking, like, maybe I should start a petition, or maybe I should, work for an agency that gets, and then he realized, like, I can't rid the state of Florida of coral snakes. So how am I going to help my child? And so the point is that I've got to equip my child to know how to handle and confront when they are up against something dangerous, or to be aware of what is something that it could be poisonous or hurtful for them. And so that's our point here. We are not going to be able to rid the world of messages that are against God's word. We're not. And we're not going to be able to fight all of these agencies and organizations and companies who do things against God's word. We have got to, as a parent, as a home, we've got to equip our kids to know how to respond when we are up against a snake.
Yeah.
And the snake is represented in God's word as, the devil, as sin. And so we are here to say, how are we going to protect our home and equip our children?
Yeah. I'd like to say one thing just about that, hun. Like, so sometimes we would all run around and yell, there's a snake, there's a snake, there's a snake. Okay. And so we'd like to yell and complain and scream about it. And really, that still doesn't stop the fact that there's a snake.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is, guys, like, you have an option here. You might be listening to our show and go, I'm not buying what Merle and Linda are talking about. Then we would say, turn it off. Okay. You don't need to listen to it. But I will also say, I'm not going to engage in an argument with you, because this is not, I'm not going to waste any time with that. All right. The idea here is you and your spouse going into God's word and aligning yourself with God's nature. Right. And so the very first thing we're going to talk about, well, what can we actually do? And the very first thing is what I would ask you to do is remain calm, get your head back together, get the emotions back down. Getting on Facebook and ranting and raving and doing all kinds of things like that. Just, I get it. Sometimes it really makes my head spin too, but it's like, no, like, what are you going to actually do in your home? So first, take a deep breath and step back.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So if we're going to do relative world news stories, let's go to Will Smith. Will Smith and Chris Rock have a conflict. And so, but is that the response that you give? And I've had some really interesting conversations with people who feel like that was chivalry, that was supporting your wife. And is that what we want to teach our kids? And we actually have had a conversation around our dinner table about who was right in that. Like, they were literally asking us, because our kids are confused. Like, are we celebrating Chris Rock?
I've been on both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
At one time I was like, yeah, smack him. And then I was like, yeah, that was a little uncalled for.
Yeah. I mean, like, what are we wanting our kids to hear from that? This is our job as a parent. Like, how are we going to respond, and how are we going to message that for our kids so that Because if we say, yeah, Will Smith, way to go, way to support your wife, so that the next time a teacher says something or a kid says something out of line, you go and smack them, like, how are you going to, your kids are going to use that as their defense. And so we've got to help our kids know that you may see things in the world or on TV that you don't agree with or that is not right in God's eyes. So how do we respond to that?
And I'll say to that too. And Chris Rock will probably think twice about what he says next time. In other words, you do have a right to speak, but your words do matter. Okay. And so we all have a responsibility with all we're doing here. And so there really is, in these situations, we all have something to do. Let's stop pointing the finger at the other person. Like, what can we do?
Right.
Okay?
We have a responsibility to protect our children.
Yeah.
And we are called by God to do it his way. Now, you may not believe in God and you may not agree with God's word. Then you've got to decide, and we say this all the time, then what's your constitution? What are you building your family on? What are your family's values that you are going to fight for and defend?
Yeah. So, and moving through that, let's go back to your house and remember, you are the keeper of your home. Okay, you are the keeper. You're the parent. You are the keeper of your home. You are the one who sees and controls what your child is exposed to, especially at a young age. That is on your watch. Okay, and so because of that, as you talked about before, that becomes your responsibility.
Yeah.
And what I think has really changed, Hun, that makes it a little strange for us is everybody gets the idea that if an intruder, and that's a negative term, an intruder came in your house, like, you would protect. What's crazy about what we're talking about now, I mean, we've got alarm systems and everything else on houses right now to keep intruders
we got trackers
out,
on
right?
our kids.
Yeah, we've got all this stuff.
Yeah.
But we're not, these are intruders, so to speak, that we are inviting into our home. In fact, we can't wait to sign up for them, whether it's a Disney Channel thing or whether it's a video or whatever, like a computer screen. We're like, oh, no, yeah, go ahead. You got Netflix, you got YouTube. So we actually invite these intruders in. So you have to think, ooh, wait, who am I actually inviting into my home?
I heard something today, too, and I wrote it down because I was like, ooh, that is good. Any dead fish can float downstream. It takes a live, strong fish to swim upstream. So parenting today, there's so many that are literally just saying, I give up. They're like throwing their hands up. I can't do anything about it. Oh, these kids are too far gone, or oh, they're smarter than me, or I can't figure this out. And so they're literally like a dead fish. And man, those kids are just getting washed downstream with the culture and the trends and whatever Facebook says or whatever Snapchat says.
Well, and the parents are getting washed downstream.
And the parents are getting washed downstream. We have got to bring our families back to life. We have got to get ourselves back in the parenting saddle and say, no, not as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And I'm going to go to God's word to know what that looks like and how to do that.
Yeah, Matthew 7:15 says, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Okay? Now, that's the whole idea of a disguise, right? Like, well, I thought it was something gentle. I thought it was good, okay? And so that is really kind of why we're talking about the mouse thing. Everybody loves Mickey Mouse, the Disney mouse. And so it has always come across to us as a fun, family-friendly, great thing. And so now you're going to have to make that decision, and you need to know how you're going to make that decision as to whether this is a wolf or this is a sheep. Okay. Let me also state something here I think is very important. The folks at Disney, I really don't believe in my heart of hearts that they don't sit at the planning table going,
how can we ruin children?
How can we destroy the children? In fact, I really believe that they sit there going, how can we do this in a beautiful way? Yeah. How can we really do this justice? How can we help the kids know more?
How can we help the marginalized kids?
Right. And so this whole idea, guys, this is not like people scheming and scamming with this evil plotting eye behind it. Instead, they have a lot of love and passion behind it. And hear what I just said. They have a lot of passion behind it. And so that's the thing that many of them don't even understand. And they don't because, Hun, as we just talked about, they're using a different constitution to determine what is good and what is bad.
Yep.
And so you have to do that. You have to decide what is your constitution going to be. We have chosen at Rock Solid Families here, God's word is going to be our constitution.
We just sat around a table today of a bunch of moms, and we were talking about how if we don't set the standard of what those values are, the world tells us very different. And some of the younger moms were saying, I have some peers, I have some classmates who literally are the ones buying the half barrels of beer for their daughters at prom, or they're the ones that are letting the boyfriend spend the night because, they want their kids to like them. They feel like it's okay. And so if the parents are kind of promoting that or allowing it, then the kids think, well, mom and dad say it's okay, must be okay. Mm-hmm. And so we're wanting to be our kids' friends, right? We're not being the parent that God's called us to be. And that looks different than saying, oh, they're my best friend. And we got to be really careful with that.
So what's the big deal, right? Like if, you use the example of drinking and buying a half barrel of beer. So what's the big deal? It's just a party. It's having fun, okay? Guys, part of being a parent is the idea that you bring, hopefully, a little more wisdom to the table than your kid does. And from our own personal experiences with drinking and things like that, I have a lot more wisdom about drinking today than I did at 18 when I was allowed to drink. That was the legal age back in my day.
Man, you're old.
I am way old. And so parents are to bring wisdom and not to take the wisdom from the kids. Okay, it doesn't mean a child can't be wise, but the idea that you've got a whole lot more behind you to create the wisdom. And so that's why we're asking you, step up. Like, you know, common sense says, you mess with that alcohol enough, something bad's going to happen to you. Yeah. And so the same things come whether we're talking some of the LGBTQ things or lots of other things. Like, you have to go back into your wisdom, okay, and go, how does this play out for my kids right here on earth? And if you're a believer, in eternity, how does this play out for my kids? What is my responsibility with this?
Yeah, I remember in high school asking my mom if we could serve wine. We were having our prom dinner, and that I thought it would be so cool and so fun to have wine at our dinner. And my mom was like, no, like your high school prom, you're going to the school for this dance. No, like that's illegal. And I was so mad at my mom. Like, she was such a fuddy-dud. And, we actually just talked about meme moms today. And it says, but most of all, I loved you enough to say no when I knew you would hate me for it. And those are the most difficult battles of all. But, like it goes on and on to talk about the meme moms. And like, sometimes we have to do the right thing, even if they're angry. On 2 Corinthians 11:13-15, part in that says that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. It sounds real fun. It sounds real good. It sounds real innocent. But man, that's when Satan loves to just kind of coat it with something sugary and sweet and make it look good. And it's when he works his best stuff.
Yeah, and it just sounds so good, right? Like, what could be wrong with this? Why would you be judgmental against it? And so I think it's so important that, Hannah, if we could get any message across today, is the idea that parents, you have the responsibility to really drop into that wisdom bank of yours and say, how is this going to play out? And so you've heard me in shows, and Linda and I both talking about, well, I need to really run this to see if this matches God's nature. All right. And how do I know God's nature? Some of it's impressed upon our conscience. Some of us is our intuition, our convictions. Yeah. But it's all laid out very much so in God's word. And so God's nature says, you know what? You have your human nature. This would be a fun party. It'd be okay if I was in relationship with same sex. This would be good. This would be good. That's my human nature. But that's where I have to learn, like, well, what is God's nature? And so, Mom and Dad, I'm asking you, do you know God's nature? Do you understand how things actually work in nature? Right? Things work a certain way in nature for a certain reason, because that's his design, that's his plan. And it also carries out with humankind. And Jesus was the deliverer of that message, okay? And so we would ask you, like, okay, before you make all these decisions about whether Disney's good or bad or not, run it by the God filter. Run it by his nature. All right.
Yeah.
And when you run it by there, see if it passes the test.
Yeah.
1 John 4:1 says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God.
Yep.
For many false prophets have gone out into the world." This isn't new business, okay? Like those of you who are dropping your jaw this week about Disney stuff, not new business,
No,
okay?
indoctrination's been going on for a long time.
Yeah, and so does it pass the God test? All right, and that's how do you know? Well, I don't know. Well, this is our job.
Yeah.
This is our job, okay? And if you're like, well, I don't know, well, then start to surround yourself with people who do. Maybe this is where the church does come in handy for you. Maybe this is where a friend or a relative who maybe has a little bit more insight because of their own experiences. This is where we tap into these people.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as a parent, I have the responsibility to connect my kids and my family with God's nature.
Yeah. You know, we can't as parents be passive. We can't be a bystander in what's going on. We have to be involved. We have to be connected. We have to have our finger on the pulse, whether it be at school, whether it be in their sports, whether it be in the neighborhood. Hun, I just got to share with you what made me so emotional today.
If you start crying,
I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good. So we had a Bible study this morning before school in a public school, and the room was full of students who were in junior high. And a lot of those students I had in ministry years ago when they were little, like preschool, kindergarten. And I know their families, and it was powerful as each one of those kiddos, not everybody got a chance to speak yet, but they stood up and they shared their name, which, by the way, sometimes that was like, oh, that's who you are, because they're going through puberty, right? And then they would share with me something maybe like who shared their faith with them, like how God's blessed them, how God's taken care of them in a hard time. And it was like story after story after story of God's protection and God's provision, and in tragedy and in grief and in horrible situations that I know of because I know their families. And here are these junior high kids standing up and sharing how God has protected them and God has blessed them. And I got emotional because I'm thinking, man, that only happens when we're intentional. That only happens when you have parents who are deliberately surrounding these students with people and with things that are going to protect their heart. They're going to guide their path. They're going to open their eyes to what it is, the snake out there, and what is truth. And so mom and dad, we have got to do that. And if you are not connected to a church home, now's the time, because you can't do it alone. It's really hard. I will just admit it's hard. And without the village that we have in our family, we would be even more lost than we are.
Yeah, those are the resources we're calling on. So, hun, let's talk about moving this down through a little bit more. So where do I need to go? Like, the Disney thing. Okay, I need to be checking my TVs. Hey, guys, it goes more than that. Like, there's different things. You know, the Florida law that just got signed by Governor DeSantis. The idea that I was in the schools. Schools do not need to be teaching
Public
this
schools.
stuff, right? And so the idea here is parents, step up. Step up, whether it means going to the school, whether it means going to the school board. You have a responsibility to say, wait, what's entering that gate? I need to make sure, because that's where my kid goes, okay?
Yeah.
You need to know about even church. Like, there's such things. We had Elise Childers over here and talking about the progressive church, progressive Christianity.
That was good. If you did not catch that one, you need to go back and watch our special guest.
Yeah.
She was amazing.
Yeah, your neighborhood, the TV is the Disney thing. Okay, it is your job to start to go out there and to check those out and to be aware. Run them through the test.
Yeah.
And if they don't pass the test, you have options.
Yeah.
You can turn it off. You can pull your kid out. You can maybe make a change inside. Okay, maybe you have a level of influence that you can get something done. Hey, step up. Sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes that's like wasting a lot of energy. It might be better to withdraw and go a different route. That's your decision to make.
And I would also say friends. Friends are a huge influence on your children. And so if you do not have at least some input in that and some observations, one of our kiddos recently said, hey, Mom, my friends don't like coming over and spending the night because you take their phones. And I think that she was wanting me to say, oh, honey, well, let's not do that then. We don't want to make your friends angry. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that's our rule. And I know what happens after midnight with a phone in a hand of an immature person or an unsupervised situation.
Kids out having fun. What could
go wrong, right?
What's the
and
harm?
so in our house, you're going to follow our rules. And if you don't like it, and we're not going to just send our kids out and let them go wherever they want and where there's no rules, that's a red flag too. And so we need to know those parents, and we need to have conversation, and we need to know what their rules are and their values are. And so mom and dad, if you're not involved in that, then you're that dead fish being swum downstream with the current culture. And you've got to make a decision. I'm going to come alive, and I'm going to get my head out of the sand, and I am going to get involved in my child's life. I'm not saying helicopter them or bulldoze them. I'm saying be involved, be intentional.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us really to our final point. At the end of the day, one, you can't be everywhere.
No.
Okay. You can't helicopter. Okay.
No.
And two, you don't want to.
No.
That's the last thing I want to do. Yeah. By no means do we want to do that. That's not what we're called to do. Okay. Instead, let's really spend our time helping educate our kids on what the moral compass of God is. At a very young age, teaching them that right from wrong from God's standard, not man's standard. At a very young age, giving them the tool to know God's word and to know his nature so that early on they can recognize, that just doesn't seem right. Okay,
Yeah.
there's something wrong with that. And they can identify things at a young age and go, yeah, that's not the way I'm supposed to be doing things.
They can spot the snake, and they know how to handle the snake.
Yes, teach them to identify.
And by the way, mom and dad, this is not a one-time conversation.
No.
And done. This is a daily practice, whether you're in the car, whether you're sitting at the dinner table, whether it's before bed. You've got to engage your kids in these conversations. And so have them put away the phone, turn off the TV, and have conversations. That's why we do our question of the night all the time, where we ask these intentional questions and we have conversation around the table so that they're prepared and equipped and really aware of what's going on out there in the world.
I think that's such a great point about the idea that this is not a one-time conversation, because I think sometimes when you hear about the sex talk, okay, we're going to sit down, I'm going to do this one time.
Yeah.
And the idea is, remember I talked about the mouse in the house, okay?
The three-legged mouse?
The three-legged mouse that he and I did battle. We are at, in some areas and in some cases, levels of infestation. Okay, so we're not talking about a single mouse where I could deal with it one time. Okay, we're talking about levels of infestation. If I'm talking about everything my kids sees at school and on their screens and all that, it's like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I have to be super diligent about the working of this in our value system at home, in our conversation. Again, not beating it and yelling it and screaming it with insanity, but saying, hey, this is how we roll in our house. This is the why. This is the why behind it. This is, keeping in with God's nature, because God's nature is what it is. We're not here to change it. Okay. And so that's such a great point. The idea that this is not a one and done conversation.
And I need you to ask more questions than you're preaching. I need you to ask questions to your kids of, what are you seeing? What are you dealing with? How do you feel about that? What do your friends say? You need to hear, because that's the only way you're going to know. And man, sometimes it's very eye-opening what our kids are dealing with or what they saw today. I mean, we just had a conversation around the dinner table a couple nights ago. I was like, what? You saw what? And that's what they deal with every day. And so if we're not understanding what they're up against, we don't even know how to equip them. Like that snake story, if we don't know what the enemy looks like, we don't know what they're dealing with, then we can't equip them for those battles.
You have to remember the strategy there. If your kid comes and says, well, at school I'm seeing this, and if right away you are attacking maybe something they see that is connected to somebody they like, okay? So now you're attacking. You might think you're attacking the sin, but in their mind, you're attacking the friend, okay? And so
point.
You have to be very careful. Okay, wait, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is your friend that you've been hanging around with, and this is what you're seeing or hearing out of them. So, please be diplomatic, learn how to do that, because at the end of the day, it's the message that you want to get across. And if you lose the right to give the message, you could lose a lot more than that.
That's a great point, because if they see that as attacking their friend, you're going to push them further away.
Yeah.
And they're going to think you're a bigot or a hater, and they're going to be against anything you say. So you've got to stay softened heart toward the person and hate the sin, again, not the sinner. And so we've got to help our kids understand that too.
Those teenage and even middle school years are such about relationships.
Yeah.
And so, when your kid's starting to connect in a relationship with somebody else, they really kind of elevate that kid. That kid, like, well, whatever that kid says, because I'm trained to keep the relationship. So you have to be very careful about how you go about something that someone they're trying to do relationship with. You have to be careful about how you approach that. So if you had questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to help with that.
Yeah.
So let's close this up with a challenge.
Yeah. So make a decision today that you are going to take a stance, that you're not going to be that dead fish, and that you're going to really, honestly turn it over to God to be the gatekeeper, but that you are going to be what God has called you to do, and that is be the gatekeeper here on earth and representing Him well. And so we've got to do a better job as a parent to do our research, to stay engaged, to not bury our head in the sand, and to really protect our kids and their hearts and their futures.
All right, great stuff. So if there's anything that we can do to help, please reach out at rocksolidfamilies.org. You could also reach us. Our phone number is 812-576-ROCK-7625. So please reach out. Again, reminders of our parenting program that is going on at Batesville through the Mondays in April. So please, 6:30, Batesville Intermediate School. Please come out and attend those. I also would like to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions as well as Hummel Insurance for their continued support of the message that we are trying to put out that we believe is hopefully honoring God and helping families.
Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
I'm going to go up and get that mouse.
I think he's dead. It's been a while.
Not done.
It's been a while.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.